Have you planted your cucumbers, waited a week or two, and now they are just sitting there looking a bit unsure? You know the feeling. You check them every morning, hoping to see a new leaf, a stronger stem, maybe the first sign of a runner. And then the temptation kicks in. You reach for the tomato feed, the seaweed tonic, the nettle tea, anything that might give them a push. But this is exactly where many cucumber plants get into trouble. Feed them too early and you can upset the roots. Feed them too strongly and you can scorch the plant. Feed them at the wrong time, especially in cold compost or chilly soil, and you may slow them down instead of helping them on. Hello my gardening friends and welcome back. Today we are talking about the first feed for cucumbers after planting out. Whether yours are in a greenhouse, a polytunnel, a raised bed, a grow bag, or a pot on the patio, the same basic rule applies. Do not rush them. Cucumbers are not like tough old brassicas. They are tender, fussy plants with sensitive roots. After planting, they need time to settle in. In Britain, that settling in period can be a little unpredictable because even in late spring or early summer, we can still get cold nights, grey days, and compost that stays cooler than you think. So the first thing to understand is this. A cucumber that has just been planted does not need a big meal straight away. It needs warmth, steady moisture, and a bit of patience. If you pour a strong feed around the roots while the plant is still sulking, the roots may not be ready to use it. If the soil is cold, the plant is hardly moving. If the compost is wet and chilly, extra feed can become another stress. So here is my first rule. With cucumbers, it is usually better to feed a few days late than a few days too early. When should you give the first feed? As a general guide, wait about 10 to 14 days after planting. But please do not treat the calendar like a strict instruction.
Look at the plant. If 2 weeks have passed and the cucumber is still standing still, with no fresh growth, no new leaves, and no movement at the growing tip, then do not feed yet. It may simply be too cold. It may still be settling in. It may be too wet, too dry, or getting a draft in the greenhouse. Feeding will not fix those problems. But if the plant has started to move, that is different. If you can see fresh young leaves, a stronger stem, new tendrils, or the beginning of a runner, then your cucumber is telling you it has woken up and is ready for a gentle feed. So what are the signs that a cucumber is ready? First, look for new leaves. Not the leaves it had when you planted it, but fresh growth made after planting. Second, look at the stem. Has it thickened a little? Does the plant look more upright and confident than it did on planting day? Third, check for tendrils or the start of a vine. That is a very good sign. It means the plant is no longer just surviving. It is starting to grow. If you see those signs, you can feed. If you do not, wait a little longer and check the basics first. Is the compost warm enough? Is it moist but not soggy? Are the nights still too cold? Is the plant protected from wind? Now let us talk about what to feed with. Option 1. A mild liquid feed. For many British gardeners, this is the simplest and most reliable option, especially if your cucumbers are in pots, grow bags, or containers. A general liquid fertilizer, used weekly, is often enough for the first feed. I would not go in with a full, strong dose on a young plant. I prefer to make it a little weaker than the label suggests for the first time, especially if the cucumber has only just started growing. Water the compost first, then feed. Never pour fertilizer onto dry compost around young cucumber roots. Once the plant begins to flower and small fruits start forming, that is when a high potash feed, such as tomato feed, becomes more useful. At that stage, the plant needs support for flowering and fruiting, not just leafy growth. Option 2. Nettle tea or comfrey tea. This is a classic allotment feed, and it makes good use of what many of us already have around the garden. You can use nettles, comfrey leaves, soft green weeds without seed heads, or a mix of green material. Put the leaves into a bucket, roughly half fill it, then top up with water. Cover it loosely because it will ferment and it will smell. Keep it away from the back door unless you want the whole family complaining. After about a week or two in warm weather, you will have a dark, strong liquid. Do not use it neat, it must be diluted. For a young cucumber, keep it gentle. Dilute it until it looks like weak tea, then water it onto already moist compost or soil. Nettle tea is more useful when the plant needs leafy growth. Comfrey tea is richer in potash and is better once flowering and fruiting begin. But remember this: organic does not mean harmless in any quantity. You can overdo homemade feeds as well. More is not always better. Option 3. Well-rotted manure or manure tea. Cucumbers enjoy rich soil, but they do not enjoy fresh manure dumped around their roots. If you prepared the bed with well-rotted manure or good garden compost before planting, you may not need much extra feeding early on, especially if the cucumbers are growing in open ground. For containers and grow bags, nutrients run out faster, so feeding becomes more important. If you want to use manure as a liquid feed, it should be made from well-rotted manure, not fresh. Steep a small amount in water, let it stand, then dilute it well before use. Again, apply it only to moist soil or compost. Fresh manure is a bad idea around young cucumbers. It can be too strong, too salty, and too harsh for tender roots. It can also bring hygiene issues into a vegetable garden, especially around crops you will be picking and eating fresh. So use only well-rotted material and use it carefully. Now let us talk about wood ash. Some gardeners love wood ash because it contains potassium and calcium. But in the UK, you have to be careful with it. If you garden on chalky or alkaline soil, especially in parts of the south and east of England, wood ash may not be suitable. It can push the soil further towards alkaline, and cucumbers do not need that. If your soil is neutral or slightly acidic, and you only use a little clean wood ash from untreated wood, it can be useful. But I would not throw it around blindly, and I would not keep adding it every week. Wood ash is not a complete fertilizer. It does not replace proper feeding, compost, or good soil. Think of it as an occasional extra, not the main plan. And now the bonus one: yeast feed. You may have seen this online. Yeast, sugar, warm water, leave it to bubble, then dilute it and water the plants. Here is my honest opinion. I would not treat yeast as a proper fertilizer. It does not provide the main nutrients cucumbers need in any reliable way. It is more of an old garden trick than a balanced feed. Some gardeners use it after a cold spell to try to wake plants up, but it will not solve cold soil, poor compost, or weak roots. If the greenhouse is chilly, the compost is cold, and the plant is sulking, yeast will not magically fix it. So if you want to experiment with it, keep it very occasional, very diluted, and only when the compost is warm. But I would never put it in the same category as proper liquid feed, nettle tea, comfrey tea, or well-prepared soil. Can you alternate feeds? Yes, you can, but do not pour everything on at once. For example, you might start with a weak general liquid feed once the cucumber is growing. Later, when flowers and fruits begin, you can move towards tomato feed or comfrey tea. If the plant is in a container, feeding little and often usually works better than giving one heavy dose. But always look at the plant.
If it is growing well, the leaves are a healthy color, the stems are strong, and fruits are forming. Do not keep feeding just because it is Sunday and that is your feeding day. Gardening by routine is useful. Gardening by observation is better. Now the important part. What should you not do? First, do not use fresh manure. It can damage young roots, especially if it is placed close to the plant. It can also create hygiene problems in a food garden. Compost it properly first, let it rot down, and use it with care. Second, do not overfeed with nitrogen. Cucumbers need nitrogen to make leaves and vines, but too much nitrogen gives you a big leafy plant with fewer flowers and slower fruiting. You get lots of green growth, but not many cucumbers. So avoid the idea of feeding more and more to force the plant along. That is not how cucumbers work. Third, do not think stronger means better. A stronger tomato feed is not better. Neat nettle tea is not better. A heavier dose of manure tea is not better. Young cucumber roots are sensitive. A weak feed at the right time is far safer than a strong feed at the wrong time. Fourth, do not feed dry compost. This is especially important with pots and grow bags. If the compost is dry, water first. Let the water soak in, then feed. This helps spread the feed more evenly and reduces the risk of root damage. Fifth, do not feed in extreme heat. Yes, even in Britain, we do get hot days, and a greenhouse can become far hotter than the garden outside. If the greenhouse is baking, wait. Feed early in the morning or in the evening when the plant is not under heat stress. Sixth, do not use ice-cold water. Cucumbers like warmth. Water straight from an outdoor tap can be very cold, especially early in the season. If you can, let water stand in a can or butt so it warms slightly before use. It does not need to be hot. It just should not be icy. So how do you give the first feed properly?
First, check that the plant is actually growing. Second, water the soil or compost with plain water if it is dry. Third, mix your feed weaker than you think you need, especially for the first application. Fourth, pour it around the root zone, not all over the leaves and stem. Fifth, use a modest amount. A small young plant in a pot does not need a whole watering can of feed. Give enough to moisten the root area without drowning it. The best time is usually evening or early morning. I prefer evening in warm weather because the greenhouse has cooled down and the plants can take up moisture overnight. How do you know the feed has helped? Do not expect a miracle the next morning. Cucumbers are quick once they get going, but they still need a few days to respond. You should see the growing tip look stronger. New leaves should open more confidently. Tendrils may become firmer. The vine may begin to extend. The plant should look as if it has moved from survival mode into growth mode.
Let us bring it all together. Do not feed cucumbers straight after planting just because you are excited. Wait until the plant has settled, rooted, and started making new growth. In British conditions, that often means waiting around 10 to 14 days, sometimes longer if the weather has been cold, dull, or wet. For the first feed, keep it gentle. A weak, general liquid feed is often enough. Homemade nettle tea can help with early leafy growth. Comfrey tea or tomato feed is more useful once flowers and fruits appear. Well-rotted manure can be useful, but fresh manure should stay well away from young plants. Wood ash can be helpful in the right soil, but it is not for everyone, especially not on chalky or alkaline ground. Do not feed dry compost. Do not feed in a hot greenhouse. Do not use icy water. Do not overdo nitrogen. And, above all, do not assume that more feed means more cucumbers. Give the plant warmth, steady moisture, and a gentle feed only when it is ready. Do that and your cucumber gets a proper start, not another shock. And now, tell me in the comments, how do you feed your cucumbers the first time? Do you use tomato feed, nettle tea, comfrey tea, seaweed feed, homemade compost, or do you leave them alone until they start flowering? I would love to know what works in your part of the country. And if you found this useful, subscribe to the channel so you do not miss the next gardening video.